The distress signal came from a dead zone. The Galactic Council's emergency response protocols were clear. Investigate all Class A signals, no matter how improbable. Still, when the alert came through the relay beacons, routed from the long-abandoned star system designated Varnax 7, it was met with more curiosity than urgency. The system had been tagged centuries ago as a loss. Uninhabitable. Hostile. Its single colonization attempt by the primitive species called humans had ended in presumed extinction when the colony ship Prospector's Hope vanished with all hands. So when the Council's Deep Space Observatory picked up a verified human signature, encoded in ancient Earth Standard Binary, it triggered a flurry of uneasy whispers in the high halls of the Galactic Assembly. The humans were calling for help. Or maybe something pretending to be human. Commander Viral of the Zaltar Strategic Corps stood at the observation deck of the research vessel Celestial Merit, arms folded behind his narrow back, mandibles twitching. From orbit, the planet looked like a bruised fruit, its landscape cracked by tectonic ridges and cloaked in swirling storms of violet and ochre. It pulsed with heat, seismic activity, and inexplicable magnetic surges. "This is where they chose to settle," Viral muttered. "To be fair, they crash-landed," replied Dr. Silova, a Vunari xenoculturalist, her luminous eyes scanning the telemetry. "The Prospector's Hope wasn't meant to land here at all. Engine failure dropped them out of warp into Varnax's gravity well. Emergency descent. Barely survived the impact." Viral chittered thoughtfully. "Yet they did survive." "Yes," she said. "For nearly 200 Earth years. That was the horrifying part." The landing team descended in full biohazard suits, escorted by security drones. The planet's air was technically breathable but laced with fungal spores that corroded non-organic matter and massive temperature shifts between day and night. They touched down amid what appeared to be a fortified human settlement, its perimeter ringed with metal stakes, bone pikes, and mounted turrets made from salvaged hull parts. No welcoming party. Only silence. Then, like ghosts in the mist, they emerged. Humans, tall, ragged, armored in a hodgepodge of adaptive cloth and scavenged tech. Their skin was scarred, some bore cybernetic grafts, others tribal tattoos. And at their head stood Captain Alira Quinn, her eyes hidden behind cracked aviator shades, a rifle slung across her back, and an expression that said, "Try anything and die." "You got here fast," she said flatly. "Only took you 2 centuries. Silova stepped forward, offering a gesture of peace. "We received your signal only recently. We came to help." "We're past help," Alira said. "We want answers." Over hours, the aliens learned what had become of the Prospector's Hope. After the crash, the survivors had scraped together what they could. Medical supplies, oxygen converters, fusion batteries. But it wasn't enough. Disease, starvation, predators, and internal conflict winnowed the crew to a fraction of its original number. But they adapted. They modified their own DNA using salvaged CRISPR protocols and alien microbial enzymes. They built armored greenhouses to grow Earth-compatible crops, trained in ancient warfare styles, and tamed vicious local creatures. Drakehounds, four-eyed, scaled predators that now walked beside them like loyal dogs. When the researchers asked how many remained, Alira replied simply, "Enough." The aliens attempted diplomacy. But their presence was met with deep suspicion. Surveillance drones sent to scan the interior of the settlement were shot down. An alien medic attempted to approach human children for routine health analysis, and was nearly killed by a woman wielding a spear made from satellite array parts and fused bone. Commander Viral requested increased security and lockdown protocols. "These creatures are unstable. They show signs of extreme tribalism and aggression. They show signs of resilience," Silova countered. "They survived what should have killed them all. And they built something from nothing." Viral dismissed her sentimentality. "They built weapons. They reek of war." That night, a council surveillance pod went missing. By dawn it was returned, dropped in the dirt in front of the research team. The pod's data drive had been stripped, reprogrammed, and broadcasting on a rotating encryption pattern the aliens hadn't seen before. "You sent a spy," Alira said, arms crossed, flanked by 2 armored warriors. "So we taught it our language." "You hacked a council AI unit," Viral growled. "We taught it to think outside the box. You know, human style." The implications were devastating. These humans had not only survived, they had progressed. Independently. Without council guidance. Worse, they had adapted alien tech in ways the council thought impossible without formal training. That was when Viral sent his first encrypted message back to High Command. "The situation is unstable. Request permission to initiate containment protocol Theta." Later, at a makeshift fire pit under the aurora-filled night sky, Alira sat with Silova, sharing the planet's native fruit, peach-colored, sour, mildly narcotic. The Vunari listened intently as Alira spoke not of tactics or survival, but of legacy. "We came here hoping to mine resources," she said. "We got buried instead. First year was chaos. People went feral. We had to become something else just to last the second year. Then we figured out how to live. Maybe even thrive. But we never forgot where we came from." Silova looked around at the camp. Children laughing, armored scouts returning, people rebuilding. "You kept your culture," she said softly. "We kept our spirit," Alira corrected. "Culture's easy. Spirit. That you gotta fight for." The next day, Viral made his move. He ordered a fleet of drone scouts to begin automated mapping of the region and initiated scans for potential threats, a pretext for militarized reconnaissance. The humans responded instantly. 3 drones were destroyed in midair using jury-rigged plasma throwers. The 4th was caught in a magnetic trap and hacked mid-flight. It dropped from the sky and was repurposed within the hour, now projecting human propaganda, a message in 20 galactic languages. "We survived your death world. We tamed your nightmares. We made this hell our home. You do not own us." Viral demanded retribution. Silova begged for diplomacy. Lyra prepared for war. As the sun set over the jagged mountains and the aurora crackled like fire across the sky, a low rumble shook the ground. Not mechanical. Something ancient stirred beneath the crust. Humans called it the Deep Roar. Alien seismographs called it an extinction-class anomaly. And high above the planet, the Council began to quietly authorize its contingency plans, because if these humans could survive this planet, then they were no longer a curiosity. They were a threat. And in hushed tones, across dozens of systems, the phrase began to circulate. A distress signal was sent. What arrived horrified the entire galaxy. Word count, 1 to 10. Let me know if you'd like to continue with Chapter 2, or want edits to this section. Commander Viral stood in the center of the Council's forward operations dome. His long limbs folded tightly behind his back, eyes flicking between reports on the holoscreen. The data was worse than he'd feared. The humans were organized, innovative, and well-armed with both native and reverse-engineered alien tech. And worse still, they had ideas. Dangerous ones. The scientific team still called it a rescue mission. Viral now called it containment. Meanwhile, Alira Quinn watched alien surveillance drones buzz overhead, squinting up through the swirling ash-tinted sky. They'd increased their patrols over the settlement. She knew the playbook. Observe, isolate, subdue. She'd read about it in the histories of Earth. Colonialism didn't die. It just got fancier tech. "They're not here to help," she muttered to her second-in-command, Garrick, a massive, grizzled survivor missing an arm, replaced with a hydraulic claw he'd built himself. "Nope," Garrick grunted, chewing on a chunk of protein fungus. "They're here to put the wild dogs back in the kennel." That day, a Council observer team entered the settlement with what they called a non-invasive analysis unit, a floating orb-shaped scanner designed to collect health and biome data. The humans were wary but allowed them entry under supervision. The scanner hovered into the central square and immediately began targeting individuals, beeping and glowing as it recorded. Then it turned toward a group of children. Alira's tone turned ice cold. "You didn't say it would scan children." It is programmed to assess local pathogen adaptation, said the lead xenobiologist, a four-eyed rhizon with translucent skin. They are statistically the most sensitive data points. You don't touch our kids, Elira growled. You scan a child without asking, you're gonna lose more than your probe. The standoff escalated in seconds. Garrick raised his rifle. Security drones hovered. Tensions cracked the air like static. Dr. Silova arrived just in time to defuse the moment, placing herself between both sides. She's right, Silova said, turning to the alien delegation. Consent matters. You treat them like test subjects, they will treat you like enemies. The drones withdrew. The scanner powered down. But the damage was done. Later that evening, Elira sat with Silova in the hollowed wreckage of an old escape pod that now served as her private quarters. She leaned back on rusted steel, one leg resting over the other, sipping from a clay mug. Why are you really here, Silova? Lyra asked. Your people didn't come all this way because of one old signal. Silova hesitated. The Council sees independent human development as unpredictable. You survived in isolation on a planet we consider unlivable. You adapted faster than any known species. You re-engineered alien systems without instruction. That a compliment or a warning? It's both. There was a long silence. Then Elira gestured toward a wall lined with salvaged datapads and childlike drawings, some from the first generation, others more recent. One image showed a stick figure holding a burning torch in one hand and a drakehound's leash in the other. We didn't survive this place by being polite. We made hard calls. We broke old rules. We even broke each other. But we learned. We didn't become monsters. We became human. That night a council drone went missing. By morning, the humans had it dismantled, reassembled, and displayed in the center of their settlement with a crude message etched into its shell. We watch you too. Enraged, Viral ordered a small strike team to secure all human weapons under the pretense of neutralizing threats to cooperative engagement. It was a thinly veiled seizure attempt. Did not go well. The humans triggered magnetic interference, dropping half the drones. Others were trapped in camouflage nets. Alira's people fought like guerrillas, striking fast, disabling tech, vanishing into smoke. The aliens retreated, humiliated. Lyra let them go. But only after leaving behind one of their own, a young alien intelligence officer who was stunned and captured. Rather than torture him, Elira gave him a history lesson. The next morning, the captive, named Yereth, was brought before a council of human elders and soldiers. Instead of interrogation, he was sat down by a fire and handed a data tablet loaded with old Earth footage. Wars, revolutions, science, art, catastrophes. Oh, Lyra narrated. See that? That's the moon landing. First time humans left their own world just to say they could. Didn't need to. Just wanted to. She skipped to the Berlin Wall falling. The Mars colonies. The Great Collapse. The rebirth. We fought each other, starved, burned, and clawed our way back up every time. You know what makes us dangerous, Yereth? Not tech. Not weapons. It's refusal. You can't scare us into a cage. We've already lived through hell. Yereth's expression shifted from arrogance to something like awe, and maybe fear. Word of the failed operation spread quickly. On the council ship, debates grew heated. Some members called for immediate extraction and planetary quarantine. Others whispered of a cleansing strike. The humans were deemed rogue sapients, a term with grim historical weight. But not everyone agreed. Silova stood before the council's remote meeting chamber and delivered her own report. These humans have built a functioning society, developed new biology-based technology, and restructured their entire social framework around adaptability. They're not barbarians. They're pioneers. Pioneers with weapons, Viral snapped. With reason to use them, she countered. Meanwhile, back on the surface, tensions within the human camp simmered. A younger warrior, Kara, argued that the aliens would never accept them as equals. We should strike now before they decide to contain us permanently, she said. Make an example. No, Elira said. We don't start the war. But if it comes, we finish it. She walked alone after the meeting, stopping at the memorial wall. Carved names of the original crash survivors and every generation since. She placed a hand on the oldest name. A. Quinn, her great-grandmother, the original captain of the Prospector's Hope. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were a people. In orbit, Viral prepared a formal request for military backup. On the planet, Elira ordered every citizen to begin emergency drills and weapons checks. She also gave Garrick clearance to activate Project Rattlesnake. In a hidden chamber beneath the old fusion core, a group of engineers, including the young prodigy Jace, unveiled what they'd been working on. A refurbished long-range EMP rail launcher, cobbled together from ship parts and alien wreckage. If the Council wants a demonstration, Elira said grimly, we'll give them one they won't forget. In her next meeting with Silova, Elira offered an ultimatum. We don't want war. But if your council tries to control us, erase us, or burn this world down, we'll make it cost more than they're willing to pay. Silova looked into her eyes and saw absolute certainty. These were not desperate survivors. These were warriors, builders, thinkers. These were humans. And the galaxy wasn't ready for them. Chapter 2 Word Count 1-15. This chapter deepens the philosophical conflict, shows both sides preparing for a broader confrontation, and showcases key HFY themes: human unpredictability, ingenuity, and emotional intensity. You said. Let me know if you'd like to continue with Chapter 3, or if you'd prefer a tighter or longer version of this one. From orbit, the human settlement looked peaceful, still, even serene under the sunrise glow of Varnax's binary suns. Commander Viral wasn't fooled. This calm is the surface tension of boiling water, he growled, mandibles twitching. They're preparing something. The celestial merit floated in high geosynchronous orbit, reinforced by 2 additional council ships, the Jade Spire and the Echo Wreath. Both were battle cruisers. Not scientific vessels. Not diplomatic transports. That fact alone changed the tone of every conversation. A war council had formed in all but name. And yet not one shot had been fired yet. Down on the surface, Elira Quinn stood atop the outer wall, surveying her people. Engineers were loading ammunition into salvaged turrets. Children were being moved to underground shelters. The ancient comm tower, rebuilt at least 5 times over, was lit up like a pulse beacon, relaying encrypted data between teams. She turned to Jace, the young engineer who'd been finalizing the EMP launcher known as Project Rattlesnake. Is it ready? She asked. Jace gave a tired nod. It'll fire. Once. That's all we need. He paused, jaw set. Make it count. Silova, observing from a hillside camp just outside the settlement, wrote in her field journal. Day 41 since contact. The humans have ceased viewing this as a negotiation. The council has too. Now we wait to see who breaks first. But as she closed her notes, she was interrupted by Yareth, the alien officer who had been briefly captured by the humans in Chapter 2. His eyes were wide with disbelief. You were right, he said. They're not primitives. They're something else. Silova turned slowly. Are you ready to speak to the council? Yareth nodded. Yes. But not as a soldier. In the council's command chamber aboard the Echo Wreath, Silova and Yareth made their case to the higher authorities via hololink. They are not hostile by nature, Yareth explained. But they will fight to the last if provoked. And they'll win battles no one expects them to. Because of weapons? A counselor asked, bored. Because of mindset, Silova said firmly. They don't see impossible odds as defeat. They see them as opportunity. Commander Viral interjected, voice like acid. We can't allow a pre-Federation species to militarize council-grade tech. They've reverse-engineered drones, scanners, even communication nodes. Next they'll be hacking satellites. Yareth smiled faintly. They already did. The room went silent. Back on the planet, Garrick and his scouts intercepted a squad of stealth drones approaching the settlement perimeter. Instead of destroying them, they captured one intact, cracked its code, and rerouted its telemetry to broadcast false data. A fake image of the settlement appearing empty, with retreating human forces. It was a classic misdirection. The Council, reading the signs, assumed the humans were abandoning their base. Commander Viral gave the order. Initiate containment sweep. At 0300 local time, dropships descended through the violet storm clouds, filled with elite containment units, armed with grav-pulse rifles, ion nullifiers, and neural dampeners. Their objective: arrest key human leaders, disable weapon systems, and pacify the area before anyone could resist. What they didn't expect was every house booby-trapped, every corridor rerouted, and the entire settlement empty. They had walked into a ghost town. "Where are they?" a Ryzen squad leader hissed. That's when the lights flickered. Just once. A soft click echoed from the mountain ridge 1.2 kilometers away. Then Rattlesnake fired. The EMP rail launcher wasn't designed for finesse. It was designed for impact. It unleashed a localized atmospheric pulse strong enough to fry circuitry in a 10-kilometer radius, shorting drones mid-air, disabling comms, and sending the entire drop force into chaos. Uniforms sparked. Weapons died. The dropships lost control and crashed into the dirt with a violent hiss of plasma. Within minutes, humans emerged from concealed bunkers and camouflaged tunnels, armed with low-tech but highly lethal gear: ballistic rifles, thermite grenades, blunt force weapons unaffected by EMP. The aliens never stood a chance. But Alira didn't order a massacre. Instead, she had all surviving troops captured, disarmed, and treated. In orbit, Commander Viral watched in horror as real-time telemetry vanished. What happened to the strike teams? Total loss of contact, his second-in-command reported. The humans must have an anti-electronic field. They built a battlefield where our tech doesn't work, Viral snarled. Savages! But even he now realized something had shifted. The humans hadn't just survived. They'd studied the Council's patterns, dissected their standard invasion protocols, and responded with surgical asymmetric warfare. Viral sent an urgent message to the Council. Request full fleet authorization. Begin orbital quarantine. They are no longer salvageable. But in the shadows of the chamber, some Council members hesitated. Not because they doubted Viral's assessment, but because they feared he might be right. Back in the settlement, Alira addressed the prisoners. "We could have killed you. We didn't. That's the difference between us and your bosses up there. You want to talk? We'll talk. You want to fight again? We'll be ready." Several alien soldiers looked away, ashamed. One, an insectoid from the slicks, spoke up. "I thought you were animals. I was wrong." "You're damn right," said Garrick. Jace, nearby, added with a grin. "Next time bring insulated armor." Later that day, Silova returned with a proposal. A sit-down summit between Alira and selected members of the Council's independent observation bloc. Not military. Not commanders. Just listeners. Alira hesitated. She didn't trust the Council, but she trusted Silova. "Fine. One condition." Silova raised a brow. "Name it. You hold it here. On our soil. With our rules." Meanwhile, cracks spread through the Council's unity. A growing number of younger delegates, inspired by Yeritha's testimony and Silova's reports, began advocating for decentralized uplift protocols, allowing species like humans to evolve on their own terms. "Let them grow their own way," said a delegate from the Odani worlds. "They might teach us something." In secret channels, sympathetic factions began reaching out to Alira's people with proposals for trade, technology exchange, and even cultural dialogue. What had started as a containment mission was becoming a diplomatic revolution. But Viral would not yield. If the Council wouldn't act, he would. That night, aboard the Celestial Merit, he authorized a Black Ops kinetic strike on the human settlement using an illegal rod from God. a high-velocity tungsten rod designed to annihilate targets from orbit without explosives. "Let's see their clever little tricks stop this," he said. Down on Varnax, the humans received the launch warning just seconds before impact. Jay screamed into the comms. "It's coming straight down. We can't move the launcher." Alira stood calmly, staring at the sky. Then she shouted, "Fire the net!" Hidden under the cliffside, a massive series of launch cables snapped into place and triggered upward, projecting a magnetic lattice of scavenged starship armor and plasma dispersal shielding. The rod struck. The sky turned white. The earth buckled. And when the smoke cleared, the settlement still stood. Badly shaken. Partly collapsed. But alive. The net had absorbed just enough to blunt the blow. And now they were mad. Commander Viral watched in disbelief. His illegal strike had failed. Worse, Council sensors intercepted the data. He had violated interstellar law, acted unilaterally, and failed spectacularly. Arrest warrants were already inbound. As security drones arrived at his quarters, he hissed to himself, "They're not just survivors. They're a contagion of defiance." Alira emerged from the ruins, scraped and coughing but upright. "Get me a line to orbit," she said. "We're done hiding. Let's have that damn summit." And as the stars above flickered with ships and beacons, word spread across the Council's networks. The humans stood against orbital fire. They built weapons from garbage. They outthought, outfought, and outlasted. And they're still standing. ***. Chapter 3 word count. 1-230. This chapter brings the stakes to their highest yet. Tactical escalation, orbital warfare, HFY-style grit and brains, and the splintering of the alien coalition. Chapter 4 will now deliver a climax focused on diplomacy, legacy, and the future of humans in the galactic stage. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 4. The summit took place 3 days after the orbital strike. By then, Commander Viral had been arrested, dragged from the Celestial Merit in disgrace, snarling about human corruption and cultural collapse. The Council had disavowed his actions, publicly at least. Privately, many had supported his view. But now, with billions across the galaxy watching the aftermath on open broadcast networks, the Council could not afford another scandal. So they sent a delegation. Not soldiers. Not bureaucrats. Scholars. Historians. Linguists. Visionaries. The summit was held in the burned-out cathedral that had once been the Prospector's Hope Central Bridge, a symbol of how far the crash survivors had come, and how little they'd forgotten. Alira Quinn stood before them not in armor, but in ceremonial robes passed down from the original crew. Her rifle was slung over her back, not hidden, not threatening, but present. By her side stood Garrick, Jace, and Dr. Silova, now acting as an intermediary. Her credentials upgraded to cross-species liaison. From orbit, the summit broadcast reached trillions. The caption on the stream: "First contact, second chances." The Council's lead delegate was a feathered Avori named Male Tuv, ancient and slow-spoken. He bowed slightly. "Alira Quinn, you have endured. You have resisted. But we did not come to praise your stubbornness. We came to ask, what do you want?" Alira didn't hesitate. "We want recognition, sovereignty, trade, and the right to walk among the stars on our own terms." Milduvi's crest rippled. "You are not a Federation species. You have not undergone uplift protocols. You have not passed the trials of transition." "We passed the only test that mattered," she said, voice like steel. "We were abandoned. And we built something better." At that, Jay stepped forward and handed over a data crystal. On it was everything the humans had learned: engineering advancements, agricultural breakthroughs, energy optimizations. The Council expected crude modifications. What they found instead was innovation. Bioadaptive polymer tech made from native Varnax flora. Hybrid reactor schematics that improved Council models by 8.3%. Open-source AI frameworks built from salvaged alien processors. "You didn't just copy us. one delegate murmured. You improved us. Garrick grinned. That's what we do. Outside the cathedral, thousands of humans and visiting aliens gathered around large holoscreens. The settlement was still scorched from the orbital impact, but that didn't matter. The children sat on shoulders, watching history unfold. Inside, Silova addressed the delegates directly. These people have demonstrated not only survival but culture, empathy, restraint. They fought when pushed but spared when victorious. That's not primitive. That's civilized. She stepped beside Alira. The council came to contain them. I suggest we learn from them. The negotiations lasted days. There were fierce debates. Some council members still argued for quarantine, fearing cultural contamination. Others insisted the humans needed oversight. But the humans refused any deal that treated them as subjects. One night, Alira met Meltuvi privately. They stood beneath the broken hull of the Prospector's Hope, looking up at Varnax's twin moons. Meltuvi's voice was low and weary. Do you understand what you've done, Quinn? You've changed the precedent. Every lost world will now demand independence. Every species we guided will question the leash. Alira sipped her drink. Good. Maybe they should. He turned to her. You're dangerous. She smiled. Yeah. We've heard that before. Back on the Echo Wreath, a secret transmission was intercepted. A rogue faction of the Council, frustrated by the summit's progress, had ordered a second strike, this time not with a rod, but with a neutron purifier designed to sterilize the area from orbit. But before the weapon could be armed, the Echo Wreath shut down. All lights flickered out. Power dead. Systems paralyzed. On every monitor, one image appeared. Human skull. Surrounded by binary. And the words, "We see you." Jace, back on the surface, smiled as he watched the ship drift. Maybe next time they shouldn't use open-source firmware. The attempted second strike, though prevented, ignited the final argument the humans needed. Silova took the data to the summit floor. This is what you call civilized, she said, eyes sweeping the delegates. Striking children with orbital weapons. Silencing defiance with genocide. There was silence. Then, from the back of the delegation chamber, a young alien, one of the newer council species, stood. I propose immediate recognition of the Varnax colony as a sovereign entity under the Galactic Concord. Shock rippled through the room. Then another delegate stood. Then another. And then it passed. Unanimous. The humans were free. Celebration spread through the settlement like wildfire. Old sirens rang again, not as warnings but as bells. People danced in the ashes. The children painted murals on the shattered walls. Scenes of spaceships, handshakes between aliens and humans, and a massive dragon-like beast breathing fire across the stars. That part, Alira thought, might have been symbolic. Garrick stood near the rebuilt defense wall and lit a cigar. You know, for a bunch of backwater survivors, we just rewrote the rulebook. Lyra laughed. Yeah. Hope they were taking notes. In the days that followed, the humans received envoys from dozens of alien species, some offering gifts, others requesting partnerships. Jace was offered a position at the Council's Technology Institute. He declined. I already have a lab, he said. And a planet that needs it. Dr. Silova requested permanent residency on Varnax. I came to study you, she said. But I'd rather build with you. Alira smiled and gave her a handcrafted insignia, an old Earth-style rank pin. Welcome aboard. The final scene of the summit was broadcast across the stars. Alira Quinn, dressed in the patched and fire-scorched robes of the original crew, stood before the galactic cameras. She held up a piece of ancient cloth, the old Earth flag, pulled from the archives of the crashed ship. The colors were faded, but it still stood for something. We are the descendants of Earth. We are survivors of silence, storm, and shadow. We do not ask for your permission. We offer our hand. She lowered the flag and turned. Behind her stood thousands of her people. Farmers, builders, warriors, thinkers. Behind them stood the ashes of their past. Ahead of them stood the stars. Epilogue: The Torch. 5 years later, Varnax had become a thriving hub, a neutral world where cultural exchanges, experimental diplomacy, and adaptive tech development flourished. Once dismissed as savages, humans were now courted as tactical consultants, terraformers, first contact mediators, and even teachers. Young council officers now studied the Varnax model at the academy. In one corner of the settlement, a new building stood. A museum, part memorial, part education center. Its entrance bore the name, The Torch of Survival. Inside was a hologram of Alira Quinn's final speech. A plaque beneath it read, "They came expecting victims. What they found was a beginning." Chapter 4 Word count. 1 to 30. This chapter delivers a strong and emotionally satisfying climax rooted in HFY themes. Human defiance, innovation, diplomacy forged through resilience, and the turning of power structures through courage and wit. It closes the story while leaving room for future adventures. Would you like a full compiled version of all 4 chapters in one document? Or perhaps you'd like to explore spin-offs or a sequel?